It started as a simple plan, a weekend getaway to an isolated cabin by a picturesque lake. The group of friends Emily, Jason, Claire, and Nate had been looking forward to escaping the chaos of city life. The location, Lake Dusk, was a hidden gem surrounded by dense forests, with water so still it reflected the sky like a perfect mirror. But it was also a place shrouded in unsettling rumors. Locals whispered about eerie happenings, strange figures, and unexplained disappearances. The group, however, dismissed the stories as nothing more than folklore. The drive to the lake took longer than expected. By the time they arrived, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving the forest cloaked in darkness. The narrow dirt road leading to the cabin was lined with gnarled trees, their branches forming ghostly silhouettes against the night sky. The cabin itself looked rustic yet welcoming, its wooden structure bathed in the warm glow of the porch light. "This place is perfect," Emily said, stepping out of the car and breathing in the crisp air. "If by perfect you mean creepy," Jason muttered, glancing around the shadowy forest. "Don't be such a downer," Claire teased, playfully nudging him. "We're here to relax and have fun." Nate grabbed the bags from the trunk and followed the others inside. The cabin's interior was cozy, with a stone fireplace, worn furniture, and a collection of old books lining the shelves. Despite its charm, there was an inexplicable chill in the air that made Emily shiver. "We should get the fire going," she suggested. As they settled in, the group's initial unease began to fade. They spent the evening laughing, cooking dinner, and reminiscing about old times. But as the hours passed, an oppressive silence settled over the cabin. Even the forest outside seemed unnaturally quiet. No rustling leaves, no chirping crickets, just an eerie stillness that made the group uneasy. "Do you guys hear that?" Claire asked suddenly, breaking the silence. "Hear what?" Nate replied, looking up from his phone. "Exactly. Nothing. It's too quiet," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness. Jason rolled his eyes. "It's the middle of nowhere. What did you expect? Traffic noise?" Emily frowned. "No, she's right. It feels unnatural." Despite their unease, they brushed it off and went to bed. The rooms were small but comfortable, each with a window overlooking the lake. Emily's room had the best view, with the moon casting a silver glow across the water. She stood by the window for a moment, captivated by the serene beauty, but something felt off. The lake's surface was too still, as if frozen in time. She thought she saw a ripple, but when she blinked, it was gone. Unable to shake her unease, Emily finally climbed into bed. The faint creaks and groans of the old cabin were oddly soothing, and she began to drift off. Then, she heard a soft, rhythmic tapping against her window. Her eyes flew open, heart pounding. "It's just a branch," she whispered to herself, trying to stay calm. But when she glanced at the window, there were no trees close enough to cause the sound. The tapping continued, deliberate and persistent. Emily mustered her courage and approached the window. Peering out, she saw nothing but darkness and the faint reflection of her own terrified face. The tapping stopped. She exhaled shakily, deciding it was probably her imagination. Yet as she turned away, a figure emerged from the shadows near the lake, tall, pale, and unnervingly still. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure seemed to stare directly at her, though its features were indistinct. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it melted back into the darkness. The next morning, Emily told the group about what she'd seen, but her friends dismissed it. "It was probably just a trick of the light," Jason said, brushing it off. "You were half asleep." "Or it could have been a deer or something," Nate added. "It wasn't a deer," Emily insisted. "It was standing upright, like a person." "Come on, Em," Claire said gently. "You were probably just imagining things. Let's not freak ourselves out." Though she felt frustrated, Emily decided not to push the issue. They spent the day exploring the area, hiking through the forest and taking photos by the lake. The beauty of their surroundings distracted her for a while, but the memory of the figure lingered in the back of her mind. As night fell, the group gathered around the fireplace to share ghost stories. Jason, ever the skeptic, scoffed at most of the tales. "People just love to scare themselves," he said. "I hear is no such thing as ghosts or curses." "You say that now," Nate replied, grinning. "But wait until something creepy happens to you." Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were tempting fate. The oppressive silence returned, wrapping around the cabin like a suffocating blanket. Outside, the lake seemed to shimmer unnaturally, as though something beneath its surface was stirring. Later that night, Jason went outside to grab firewood. When he didn't return after several minutes, Claire began to worry. "He's probably messing with us," Nate said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "I'll go check." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Emily and Claire exchanged uneasy glances, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, the door creaked open, and Jason stumbled inside, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "What happened?" Claire asked, rushing to his side. Jason shook his head, struggling to find the words. There was something out there," he stammered. "I don't know what it was, but it was watching me." The group's nerves were shot. They decided to stick together, locking the doors and windows. But as the night wore on, the cabin's atmosphere grew more oppressive. Strange noises echoed from the lake low, mournful sounds that seemed almost human. Shadows danced across the walls, though there was no source of light to cast them. Emily's heart raced as she realized they weren't alone. Whatever was out there wasn't just watching, it was coming closer. The tapping on the windows began again, this time more insistent. The friends huddled together, their fear palpable. "We need to leave," Emily said, her voice trembling. "Now." "We can't drive in the dark," Nate argued. "The road's too dangerous." "Staying here is more dangerous," Jason shot back. As they debated their options, the front door burst open with a deafening crash. The figure from the lake stood in the doorway, its form shrouded in darkness. Its presence exuded a palpable sense of malice, freezing the group in place. "Run!" Emily screamed, breaking the spell. They bolted out the back door, sprinting toward the car. The forest seemed alive, branches clawing at them as they ran. The figure pursued them, its movements unnaturally fast and fluid. Reaching the car, Nate fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. The engine roared to life, and they sped away, the cabin and the lake disappearing into the distance. But the sense of relief was short-lived. In the rearview mirror, Emily saw the figure standing in the middle of the road, watching them with hollow, unblinking eyes. The group never spoke of what happened that night. They vowed to leave Lake Dusk's secrets buried, but the experience haunted them. Emily couldn't escape the feeling that they had disturbed something ancient and vengeful, and though they had left the lake behind, she couldn't shake